Pastor Todd here. Hope you're doing okay. Wanted to take a few minutes and touch base with you, let you know what's going on. I do have good news. I mentioned this morning in the message that we are getting closer to opening up, and I wanted to talk to you about that. And I'm pleased to announce this afternoon that our church will be reopening for inside services on June the 7th. And that is just 2 weeks from today. That's June the 7th, okay? So please go ahead and mark your calendars for that. On June the 7th, we'll be meeting inside our building for the first time since March. If you can believe that, it's been a very long time, but we're thankful for that. Now, given the news of the governor's restrictions on church worship services being overturned, that was recently overturned by a federal judge, and also this past week, the president made a declaration concerning places of worship. He has labeled them as essential businesses, or places that are essential to people. All that being said, we could have last week began meeting back in our church, the church building, I should say. But personally, myself, and talking with just a few of the deacons in the church and the trustees, we just didn't feel that it was wise to rush right in without a plan. So we decided that we would meet on Friday of this week, so that was 2 days ago. We met and we developed a plan. Now, plans are not perfect, but plans are necessary. As someone said rightly, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. I'm a firm believer in that. So we sat down and we came up with some things. So I want to talk to you about what you need to know before we open back up for services. Now, one thing I want to talk about is before you ever arrive at church on June the 7th, I almost said December 7th, but June the 7th, before you ever arrive at church, I want you to know that you can rest assured that our building has been thoroughly cleaned. I'm talking top to bottom. I have been in touch with our cleaning crew, Miss Robin Edwards, and through Miss Robin Edwards, and she has coordinated that and done a fantastic job. They have immediately, as soon as the coronavirus pandemic was, as soon as we went on lockdown, she touched base with the members of the cleaning crew and had them go in and disinfect the church. So it's already been disinfected, but they are going to go back and do another disinfecting job on the church before we open on the 7th. They're going to get all the doorknobs. So when you come in on June the 7th, all the doorknobs in the church, even ones that you wouldn't even touch on a regular basis, but all the doorknobs on the church, the doors, the breaker bars on the doors will all have been disinfected. The light switches will have been disinfected. The backs of the pews that are hardwood and all the hard surfaces on the pews and the pews themselves will have been disinfected. This is going to be something that we're doing just to cut down on the amount of germs that are there before we get there. Another thing, hand sanitizer. We have always had hand sanitizer at our church, well, at least for the past 4 years that I've been the pastor there. But we are ordering even more hand sanitizer so that we do not run out. Now, it's on back order, but we do have several bottles to get us through in the time being. But we will have hand sanitizer in the foyers. There'll be hand sanitizer in the pews. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And something else that I want you to know is the church is closed now. We're not allowed to have any on-site services aside from our drive-in service, which has been very successful, and it's been really fun for the past several weeks. But one of the things I want to talk about is on June the 7th, whenever it opens, as soon as the service is over, the church will be emptied out, people will leave, and the church will be closed. And listen, this is important that you understand this. Nobody will be allowed back into the church without contacting me first. Okay, now there's some exceptions. If you're on the cleaning crew, you don't have to contact me to tell me when you're going to go clean, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to cut down on the amount of contamination coming into the church, or not contamination, that might be a bad word, but the amount of traffic through the church and spreading of different germs and stuff. The only people that we really want in there on a regular basis would be the people that are responsible for the cleaning of the church. So they are the exception. And the reason I'm saying this is because there are several people that have access to the church. And, up until this point, people just come and go kind of as they please, and hey, that's fine, that's no big deal. You unlock the door, when you get there, you unlock it, or you lock it before you leave and set the alarm. That's no big deal, but we're trying to ensure that the building is going to be as clean as possible. So that's the reason we're doing this. So before you ever show up to the church, you can rest assured that it has undergone a thorough cleaning, okay? Now, there are going to be some changes to be aware of whenever you arrive. Now, you're watching this video on Facebook. Feel free to send me a message if you would like to see a printed copy of these changes. I have a printed copy. I'd be glad to email that to you or print it out and make sure that everybody has it. I might do that. I might print it out and make sure that everybody has a copy next Sunday. I'll do that. But here's some changes that you need to be aware of whenever you arrive. First of all, this is kind of heartbreaking to me, but there will be no Sunday school for a while. We're not canceling it altogether. We're just saying that there's not going to be any Sunday school for a while. We felt that it was an unnecessary risk to have that many people in that small of a space for that amount of time. So we have opted not to have Sunday school. There will be only one service per week on site at the church, and that is going to be our morning service. Again, this is to cut down on the amount of cleaning that would need to be done to ensure everyone's safety. You can imagine if we had Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, then we would have to have the church cleaned at some point before Sunday morning, and then it would have to be disinfected Sunday afternoon, and then it would have to be disinfected either Sunday evening or sometime before our Wednesday service, our Wednesday evening service. So we've opted to only have the one service per week for right now. That will change as things progress and things get better, okay? And I trust in God that things will get better. So only one service per week. And here's what to expect from the services. First of all, our service will be similar to our drive-in service. The only difference is you're going to be sitting in the church, in the pews, in the air conditioning. Amen. Because I was sweating like a crazy person this afternoon. All right. But it'll be similar to the drive-in service, meaning that it's going to begin at 10:15 with special music. That's something else I need to talk about. We have opted not to do any choir right now, and we're kind of up in the air on whether or not we should do congregational singing. I love congregational singing. I think it's good for everybody, but it's good for worship for sure, but there are reports that are showing that singing like in a choir or singing standing close to people it's a possible way of spreading the coronavirus, and we're trying to cut down. That's what we're trying to cut down on, so please be patient with us as we move forward. Again, that will change in the coming weeks, we hope. Now that begins at 10:15. Preaching will begin at 10:30. Now the doors will be open to the church probably around 9:45 to 10 o'clock. Well, probably the doors will be open around 10 o'clock in the morning. So that'll give you 15 minutes you can get there at 10 o'clock and get settled in, go to the restroom. We'll talk about that in a minute. Before the service actually starts. And then the singing will start at 10:15 and preaching will follow at 10:30. After that, we'll be dismissed, okay? Let's see, we're going to be utilizing the front door and the front door only for entering the building and leaving the building, okay? I thought about this, and I don't really remember how much discussion we gave it, but it makes perfect sense. If you come in that front door, if you come into the building, you're not going to be making multiple trips in and out, not be making multiple trips up and down the aisle. You're going to come into the building, you're either going to go to the restroom, again we'll talk about that in a moment, or you're going to go to your pew and you're going to sit down, okay? But we're only going to be using the front door for entering the building and leaving the building. Now, in the event of an emergency, I do feel that it would be prudent for me to say this. In the event of an emergency, if we needed to leave the building in a hurry, any of the exits would be fine to use. Any of the ones in the Sunday school wing, the side door to the church, any of those would be fine. But we are asking that you limit your entering and exiting the building to just the front door. Okay. We are asking that there be no fellowship inside the church building at all. Okay, first of all, no fellowship inside the church building at all. If you're going to talk, if you're going to congregate, we ask that you do that in small groups outside in the parking lot, but please, please, please be mindful of social distancing. It's ultimately your responsibility. If someone gets too close to you, it's your responsibility to say, do you mind, 6 feet? It's your responsibility to do that. But we are going to be watching that very closely inside the church, and we're not going to be allowing anybody to get within. We're going to try to keep we're going to keep that 6 foot of distance for social distancing. Okay. Anybody that's congregating inside the church building, unless they're on official business this afternoon, I had to meet with 2 of the men to discuss something that we were talking about doing in case of overflow. That was official business, as myself and then a couple of the other men of the church. But anyone that is congregating inside the building and you're just doing that, you're just sitting around talking, you're going to be asked to move outside. I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to run you out or anything. I'm just going to very politely ask you to leave the building, just because we are trying to maintain as much cleanliness as possible. There's going to be no coffee, no donuts for a while. I hate that. I really do, because you guys know how much I love coffee, but we're going to have to call that off for a while. Also, there's going to be no handshaking for a while. No hugging, obviously. We cannot be that close to each other. That's a great way to spread the coronavirus. Another thing to keep in mind is that seating will be limited, okay? There technically doesn't have to be any limit of people inside the church building, because the governor's restrictions were removed completely whenever his executive order was overturned. But we thought it best to take the following actions. So what you're going to see on the 7th when you walk in, it's going to be different. Every other pew is going to be taped off. We're going to take blue painter's tape and we're going to tape these pews off on both sides so that there will be nobody trying to get in, okay? So if you see a pew that's taped off, you cannot sit there. You will not be allowed to sit there. If you come in and say, hey, that's my pew, that's where I sit, and you take the tape off, you'll either be asked to move to another pew, or we'll have to ask you to obviously leave the premises. We don't want to do that. We don't anticipate anybody giving us any problems there, but that's how seriously we're going to take this. The reason is because, well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but you may only sit on a pew with your close family members. What do I mean by that? I mean that you can sit on a pew, like my wife and my daughters, we can sit on a pew together, and we don't have to keep 6 feet different distance because we live together in the same house. So if it's someone that lives in the same house with you, you can sit on the same pew, and you can sit as close to them as possible. If it's a family member but they don't live with you, then you have to separate by at least 6 feet. If you're going to sit on the same pew, that means one or two of you on one side and the rest of you on the other side with 6 feet in between. We're also asking that not only there's 6 feet between people, but the reason we're blocking those pews off is that way there will be an entire pew between everybody. So we're just trying to do everything we can to keep social distance, to keep the social distancing as easy as possible. If you share a pew with someone, I know we have a few people that sit with close friends, then we're asking that you do sit on opposite ends of the pew. You can, give a holy wave, hello, how you doing, appreciate you, love you, miss you, wish we could shake hands and hug and all that good stuff, but we can't do that right now. But please keep 6 feet apart. In the event of overflow, we're considering some options. I'm not going to say anything about those yet because we have got to make some preparations for those, but we'll make you aware of those as those options and those needs, as those options become available and as the need arises, okay? Certain parts of the building are going to be off limits. In other words, you will not be allowed in these places. For starters, there will be no access to the Sunday school classrooms. If you are a Sunday school teacher and you need to get into your classroom for something, if you will let me know, I'll tell you what you can do to get back there and get that stuff. But please, I'm asking you to do a personal favor to me and to yourself and to everyone around you. Please just do not be wandering around the church anywhere that we're asking you not to go. That would be very appreciated right now. Okay, so no access to the Sunday school classrooms. The fellowship hall is going to be off limits for the time being, as well as the 2 restrooms in the fellowship hall, okay? So there are 4 restrooms in the church, 2 in the fellowship hall and 2 in the main church building. The 2 in the fellowship hall are the only ones that are off limits, okay? So please do not be back there using those. Please do not be back in the fellowship hall unless you have a reason to be back there. And the only people that have a reason to be back there are the people that are cleaning the church right now, okay? If you have to go back to the fellowship hall, please let me know. Let's see, I don't lose my place. The church library, obviously, is going to be closed for the time being. We don't need to be switching books back and forth, okay? The Sunday school office is closed to anyone who is not approved to be back there. I think you know who you are if you're approved to be back there or not. So that's the parts of the church that are going to be off limits. The restrooms will be opened. The restrooms being in the main church building, that is, through the back of the auditorium, in the hallway there. Let's see here, with the exception of course the fellowship hall, I've already said that, but those 2 restrooms are closed. But here's what we're asking from you, and this is where we need your help. The restrooms are going to be closed, the restrooms are going to be open, but we are asking that only 2 people in the restroom at a time. If there happen to be two men in the men's room, the men were asking you that you line up down the hallway towards the fellowship hall. Do not go in the fellowship hall, okay? But go down towards the fellowship hall and give yourself some distance. And when someone comes out, then just first come first serve. You go in. Just be mindful of that. Ladies, we're asking that if you need to use the restroom, if there's two ladies ahead of you, that you go down the hallway towards the Sunday school wing. Don't go into the Sunday school wing, but go down the hallway towards the Sunday school wing. And that you will please wait patiently for someone to come out. Now, please be aware that people are waiting. If you're in the restroom, please don't, take time and try to carry on a conversation or anything in the restroom. Please get in and get out. We appreciate that for sure. We are not mandating. We are not mandating that you wear a mask to worship with us. But if you feel comfortable wearing a mask, if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, and I don't think anybody feels comfortable wearing one, but if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask to church, then by all means, wear a mask. We're only asking that you provide your own mask. Let me make that more clear. The church will not be providing you with a mask. We will be providing hand sanitizer, plenty of hand soap, everything that you need to make sure that your hands are clean, but we will not be providing masks. So if you need a mask, get your own, okay? Here is, another thing too, we want to just say this, a couple of important, probably the two most important things I'm going to talk about on the list. If you have traveled outside of the country recently, we ask that you stay home. I know that some countries, if you've traveled overseas to China or Europe, places where the coronavirus is pretty prolific, then definitely stay at home. If you've been to Canada or somewhere like that, maybe give it a week or so and then come worship with us. But if you've traveled outside, if you've traveled to New York recently, probably wouldn't be a good idea to come to church service your first Sunday back. Give it a week or two before you come back just to make sure that you're okay. But we are asking that you be respectful of that and the health of everyone else in the church. Please do not come to church if you've been out of the country recently. And another thing too, if this is pretty important here as well, if you don't feel well, please stay at home. We are not set up to take temperatures. I don't feel like we have anyone who is qualified to take your temperature before you come into service, so we're not going to do that. And there's nothing wrong. I know there's churches that are doing that, and that's fine. They have medically certified people there that can do. I know anybody can read a thermometer, but what's a fever for you may not be a fever for me. At 99.1 degrees, I feel like I'm dying, and you know what? You may be able to mow your yard and do all types of housework with a fever of a 99.9 or 100.1, but we are asking you, if you don't feel well, please stay at home. I'm asking you this not only as your pastor, but as your friend with asthma, that if you do not feel well, please do not come to church. Listen, we understand, but most importantly, God understands that you don't feel well, and we'd appreciate it. It may not be the corona. I'm not saying that every sickness that you have is the coronavirus. I'm just simply saying that if you're not feeling well, then by all means don't come to church, because we don't want to take that risk, okay? Before I end this video, I want to let you know that there will be a statement of waiver of liability posted on several places at the church on the property. The first place you'll see this will be on the front door when you walk in the church, and in the event that you don't see it there, we're going to post them in a couple of other places in the church, but we're also going to post them in the foyer. Very simply, it states that COVID-19 is a very contagious virus and that it's known to be spread person to person. And with that knowledge, understanding that, I think everybody understands that it spreads person to person. So with that understanding, if you choose to attend service at Grace Baptist Church, you are assuming the risk of possible exposure to yourself and or your family. Okay? And by entering the church, you are waiving any liability against the church and anyone in attendance. Now, a statement regarding this waiver is available on the church website, and I've actually got our church website pulled up right here behind me. Let me zoom in here if I can. I don't know how well you can see that from where you're at. But right there at the top, COVID-19 update is right there on our website. You go to our website, that is gbc.org. It's right there at the very top of it. I'm going to put a link in this video for you to click on. It'll take you straight to the home page, and you can click on the COVID-19 update, and it will show you. It'll bring up an article. You click on where it says "Read More," and it will bring up the statement of waiver of liability. basically this, I'm going to reiterate this before I close out. You understand that coronavirus is a contagious virus, and with that understanding, if you come around, or if you come to church, if you come around other people, you're running a risk of possibly exposing yourself to it. So with that knowledge, if you decide to come to church, you are the one making that decision. We're not making you come to church. We're not mandating you come to church. And with that being said, you have the option to wear a mask. You have the option not to wear a mask. You have all those options ahead of you. And whatever you choose, if you happen to come to church and you are inadvertently exposed, that's on you. That's not on the church. You can't hold us liable for that, because you, by being there, by reading this, by having this, watching this video, you are now assuming the responsibility of that risk. All right, I don't anticipate there being any sicknesses like that. I know me personally, I'm taking this very seriously, as I have asthma, and of course I have 2 small children and a beautiful wife who I love dearly. I'm saying this to be honest. If I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to be at church. I don't want to cancel church unless we absolutely have to, but I'm not going to be there. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you healthy, because I love you and because I care for you, and because it's the right thing to do. Anyway, that's all I have to say. This video was probably a little bit longer than it should have been, but I felt like that it was necessary to get everything across. There's a lot of information here, and I took the time to script it out so that I could read it to you so that I wouldn't miss anything. All right, if you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. Feel free to ask me, and we'll talk about that we'll talk about any questions that you may have personally, one-on-one. All right, guys, I love you. God bless you. Have a great day.